You ever meet someone so entitled that they make you question reality itself? Well, that was my HOA Karen. She thought she owned the whole neighborhood, especially my mailbox. But I had enough of her petty power trips, so I gave her a lesson she'd never forget. Trust me, you're gonna wanna stick around for this one. And hey, if you love seeing karma served cold, and in this case, buzzing, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because you don't want to miss what happened when I filled my mailbox with bees. So it all started when I moved into what I thought was a peaceful suburban neighborhood, freshly painted houses, perfectly trimmed lawns, and neighbors who waved when you drove by. Except there was one problem: the HOA. And not just any HOA. Ours was run by Karen. You know the type: blonde bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, clipboard that might as well have been a weapon, and a voice that could shatter glass when she said, "That's not HOA compliant." She was the self-appointed queen of our little cul-de-sac, and she ruled it like a dictator with a scented candle addiction. My first run-in with her happened literally on move-in day. I was unloading boxes when she strutted over in her pastel pink tracksuit, all smiles that didn't reach her eyes, and said, "Oh, you must be the new homeowner. Just so you know, the HOA has very strict regulations about mailbox paint colors." I laughed it off, thinking she was joking, but nope, she handed me a laminated sheet with mailbox color codes. Apparently, only pebble gray and midnight bronze were allowed. I looked at my standard black mailbox and shrugged, thinking it wasn't a big deal. Big mistake. 2 days later, I found a bright orange violation notice taped to my front door. Non-compliant mailbox color, it read. I rolled my eyes and decided to just let it slide. I had bigger things to deal with, like unpacking my life. But Karen wasn't the kind of person to let things go. Every morning, I'd catch her loitering near my driveway, pretending to inspect the sidewalks, when really, she was just waiting for me to step out so she could nitpick something. Trash bins too close to the curb. Grass 1 inch too long. My dog barking for 5 seconds. You name it, she had a problem with it. But the mailbox, oh, the mailbox became her obsession. I'd find her touching it, opening it, even wiping it down like it was her personal property. One day, I came home from work and caught her opening my mailbox. I shouted, "Hey, that's federal property, you can't do that." She froze, then snapped, "I'm the HOA president, I have a right to inspect for compliance." Yeah, no, that's not how the mail system works. I told her to back off, but she just smirked and said, "Then maybe you should just fix it." So I painted the mailbox pebble gray, just to shut her up. For a week, things were quiet. Then came violation notice number 2, mailbox flag not regulation red. I checked the sheet, she'd never mentioned the flag color. At that point, I realized it wasn't about the rules. Karen just wanted control. I started getting more notes. Mailbox door squeaks. Mailbox post leaning. Mailbox not reflective enough. Reflective. What was she expecting? An airport runway signal. I tried to reason with her, but she just kept escalating. One morning, I saw her unscrewing my mailbox door. I confronted her, and she said, "Just checking for rust." I told her to get off my property, but she didn't even flinch. That's when I knew I had to hit back, but not in the usual way. Karen was nosy, entitled, and fearless. I needed something that would make her think twice before ever touching my property again. Then it hit me, she was terrified of bugs. I knew because once, when a wasp flew near her head at the community meeting, she screamed so loud the police showed up. So I thought, what if the next time she opens my mailbox, she gets the surprise of her life? I didn't want to actually hurt her, but I wanted her to learn. That's when my buddy Jeff, who's a beekeeper, mentioned he had a few small hives he was relocating. The idea clicked instantly. I asked, "Hey, what happens if I just borrow a few bees?" He laughed, thinking I was joking, but when I told him about Karen, he said, "Dude, I'll help." We planned it perfectly. Jeff brought a small, ventilated container filled with docile honeybees, safe, non-aggressive, but still buzzing enough to scare the soul out of someone. We placed the container inside the mailbox, leaving the lid slightly open so a few could fly around inside. Then I set up a small hidden camera aimed at the mailbox because I knew she'd come snooping again. Sure enough, That very next morning, 6:37 a.m. sharp, Karen strutted across the street, coffee mug in hand, wearing her signature visor and that stupid clipboard. She looked both ways like she was crossing a highway and then reached for my mailbox. I was watching live on my phone feed, barely containing laughter. She pulled the handle, and the second she opened the door, a cloud of buzzing bees came rushing out. She screamed like she'd been shot, flailed her arms, and sprinted across the lawn, dropping her mug and tripping over her own clipboard. I swear, it was like watching a slow-motion scene from an action movie. Bees swarmed around her for a few seconds before she bolted back home, slamming her door behind her. I was crying laughing, actual tears streaming down my face. But that wasn't even the best part. Within minutes, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Does anyone know why the HOA president is screaming about bees? Karen says there's an infestation. Someone even posted a video from their Ring cam. Karen running, waving her arms like a maniac, yelling, "He has bees in his mailbox." I just sat there sipping coffee, enjoying sweet, buzzing karma. Of course, she called the HOA emergency line, which, by the way, was just her husband's number, and declared a public safety issue. Next thing I know, animal control shows up. I played dumb. Bees. Really? That's weird. Maybe they built a nest overnight. The officer looked at me and said, "Ma'am from the HOA says you planted them intentionally." I chuckled and replied, "Sir, do I look like a beekeeper?" They left after finding nothing dangerous. The bees were already back with Jeff by then. Karen, on the other hand, wasn't done. She marched to my door that afternoon, still twitchy, face red, sunglasses perched like armor. "You think this is funny?" she yelled. "You could have killed me." I calmly said, "Actually, Karen, tampering with someone's mailbox is a federal offense. So if you ever touch it again, I'll call the cops." She froze, realizing she'd messed up big time. She tried to recover her composure, mumbling something about community standards, but I just smiled and closed the door. Word spread fast. The whole neighborhood now saw her differently. People started pushing back, painting their mailboxes whatever color they wanted, ignoring her notices. Without her fake authority, she started losing control. A week later, the HOA voted to remove her as president. I didn't even have to campaign. People were just tired of her drama. But Karen didn't fade quietly. She tried to accuse me of emotional harassment in a community meeting, but when the recording of her trespassing hit the screen, thanks to my camera, everyone gasped. The vote was unanimous. Karen was done. The next morning, her house went up for sale. Guess she couldn't stand living in a place where her power was gone. A few months later, Jeff and I were hanging out, laughing about it all, when we saw the new family moving into her old house. Nice folks, friendly, not clipboard types. The neighborhood actually became peaceful again. My mailbox, still gray, still standing, no violations since. And the best part, every time I see a bee buzzing by, I can't help but smile, remembering how poetic that revenge was. Some neighbors still joke, "Careful, don't mess with the bee guy." But honestly, I don't regret a thing. Karen had it coming. She used rules as weapons, and in the end, karma came back buzzing. So yeah, moral of the story. Don't mess with someone's mailbox, especially when you're the kind of person who thinks being HOA president makes you untouchable. Because sometimes, karma doesn't knock, it stings. And hey, if you enjoyed this story of petty revenge mixed with a little creativity, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more. Because next time, I'll tell you about the HOA treasurer who tried to fine me for unapproved holiday lights, and how I lit up the whole block just to prove a point. But that's a story for another day.